Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast where we talk about real Canadian rugby. And before we begin, this may be, I think it's like our 191st episode. Derek, is that correct?
Yeah, 190.
191st.
Closing in on 200.
We're closing in on 200, but our good friends at Jack Rangers podcast, they are reaching 100th for the first time this week. So we just want to put out a quick word. Congratulations to them. And if you're a fan of the Free Jacks, or as we know them, Nova Anglia Union Jacks, you can listen to them. They've had some great guests on. They've had a few of the Canadians on as well, and some other people who aren't Canadian, so they don't matter. You know, something like the owner and stuff like that. Yeah. They're not Canadian, so who cares? But again, congratulations for 100 episodes. Derek, speaking of Canadians, we've had Canadian action happen this weekend in the Villa Cup in Spain. Initial thoughts on the game as a whole.
I love that you paused on that because it's like, yeah, that's the thoughts, really. It's
the thought that counts.
Yeah, exactly. It's been what, I guess by the time we're recording this, it's been like 2 days, and it's still just silence and shaking your head, I think, is the initial reaction to this. Wow, yeah, initial thoughts. So Spain beats Canada 42-20 and 35-6 after the first half, which was absolutely brutal. That first half was just dreadful. Dreadful, terrible, abominable.
Not good.
Bad. Like, I don't know. We can run through the whole thesaurus if you want, to describe this. It was just, man, like, I don't even know. Like, I just spent the whole game like screaming and stuff. I sent out the one tweet that at halftime I'm like, I'm cracking a beer because that's the only way to get through this game. Now I guess to maybe articulate some thoughts more effectively, because it has been a couple of days. I don't know if this is the worst game that Rugby Canada has played in the Kingsley Jones era. I'm not really sure it is, because I feel like we've witnessed some bad ones over the past few years. But I think my initial reaction to this game is this, especially the first half, because my God, that was something. But I think this is the most frustrating game in the Kingsley Jones era. And like, just because it's obviously like the easy one is just obviously like how bad the team played in the first half.
Yeah.
Like everybody across the board, the rookies, the vets, nothing went right for Canada. It was terrible. But also because, like, we came on this podcast like a month ago. You said this is 191. I'm pretty sure it's 187. So 4 weeks ago, I guess. Right? Kingsley Jones got re-signed. Now, to briefly recap this episode, if you're one of like the 6 people in the Canadian rugby community that haven't listened to it, we had some thoughts on that were basically, again, pulling up the thesaurus for all the words that mean bad. And also adding in some 4-letter colorful adjectives as well. But like, that's like the Kingsley Jones resigning. Came on, expressed our frustrations about how bad that signing is, how Rugby Canada needs a culture change, how we just think he's a bad coach. Like, if it comes down to even just as simply as that, the team loses all the time, the team doesn't play well under him, everything, right? And we kind of also added at the end of that podcast that we were like, he might really have to win this game. Right. Yeah. Like, Rugby Canada might really need to win this game against Spain. And watching this game, through all the frustrations, through all the anger that we expressed on the show, that our listeners have expressed to us, like in comments or in DMs or whatever, since that show came out, all this game did in the first half was go and be like, the fans are right. That's it. That's all we learned from this pod, like, or from this game. I think it's Kingsley Jones, like the team under him, it's not performing well. And it's like I want to even come on the show too, and like I feel like we try, like, because Rugby Canada at the men's national team has been bad over the past few years, right? Safe to say, I think. But we always try to come on to it and be like, have some positive things to say, no matter how bad it gets. And I'm like, watching this game, I'm like, the only positive things I can think of, and it's like, I do want to shout them out. Rumball getting his 50th cap. That's cool.
Yeah, that's great.
That's cool. And captain. Mitch Richardson got his first international test try. That's cool. Right? That'll never not be cool. And Matawaru played pretty good in the second half, but he played pretty good. That's it. But it's everything is completely overshadowed by how bad that first half was.
Yeah. I mean, it was just
like terrible.
Yeah. And the thing is, I put out on our social media channels, I put out a tweet saying, what are the odds that in the post-match interview, post-match analysis, Kingsley Jones is going to focus on winning the second half and nothing else?
He didn't, though. He did, or at least
he didn't, because I can't find it anywhere. So
there's a Rugby Canada like post-match write-up that has one quote. Does not say Canada won the second half. But granted, though, like, to your point, though, like, Canada played better in the second half.
Yes.
But, I mean, that's like us being like going outside on a -15 day and being like, oh, hey, it kind of warmed up a little bit. It was like a -20 the day before. Like, it's still freezing. Like, it doesn't change the fact that it's still cold. Like, it, but and for this game too, and I'm like, outside of a miraculous comeback in this game, you can't erase that first half.
No,
like, no matter what. I mean, yeah, outside, because even if you look at this game, right, it's just basic numbers here. Like, Canada was never in this game, right? Like, you got Spain's halftime lead is 35-6, right? 29-point halftime lead. A bit of a stalemate-ish kind of game for the first 20 minutes of the second half. Canada does get 2 tries, pull it to 35-20, right? 35-20 is still a 15-point lead, right? Like, that's 3 tries. Like, that's for that lead is still 3 tries. Like, it's a significant lead still. And then obviously Spain scores another late try, right? And when Spain scores that late try, it puts the game at 42-20. So it's a 22-point win. So at least 4 tries, right? Like, to score. Like, I mean, 22 is 3 tries if you convert them, but it's not, because it's 22, so it's more than 3 converted tries. So you still need 4 tries. But whatever. Right. And it's like, at no point was this game close. Like, even though Canada maybe showed a little bit of signs of life in the second half. Again, shout out to Mitch Richardson for getting his first career try. Cole Keith had a try earlier. Like, you know, if anything, it's the same thing we've been saying about the team forever. It's like, the players at least try. Like, they don't give up on games or whatever. But like, it doesn't erase the bad first half, because it's like, man, all right, well, yeah, I guess, I don't know. We can get into the actual game of the first half, which was just, as we just said, like, just dreadful. Like, all right, I mean, maybe to go in a little bit of chronological order here. I don't know about you, but I hated the decision to kick for points on that penalty, like 2 minutes into the game or whatever that was.
Yeah, that was infuriating.
Yeah, like, I think, because, like, to me, so I know, like, even though Nelson made that kick, right? Like, that was like a 48-meter kick or something like that. Which, I mean, good for him. Like, whatever, he's got the range to do it. But like, to me, that just sent the message to be like, I don't think this team has any confidence in their ability to score. Right? I don't think this team has any confidence in their attack at all. Right now. And that's on the coach, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But like, to me, it's like, looking at that, it's like, I think that's a great opportunity to have, because Povey, when they actually did kick for touch, Povey had some darts in this game. Like really solid kicks that were around like 5 meters out. I don't doubt that he could have done that in that moment, right? And it's like, it gives you a real chance to put like a try on the board early, get everybody some confidence. Instead, they kick for points. Even if you want to, I think, take the idea, it's like, oh, like, let's just get the scoreboard ticking over positively, then like whatever, because it's evaporated because Spain comes down the field and scores a try in like, let me just double check this here, but Spain comes down and scores a try in a minute. 1 minute. Spain's 1 minute. So like, even if you thought of any positivity for that, Spain scores a try in 1 minute, and now you're losing again. And now you go from being up by 3 to down by 4 in literally 60 seconds. Right. And again, like that, I think is confidence shattering. And then you can get into the rest of the half, which I don't, do you want to start with anything in particular, Stu? What should I got plenty to talk about, plenty of angry things to talk about.
Well, this is the thing, is that you said, because of the penalty, I think it does show, because this is not the first time we've seen Canada have a penalty option and go for the post when it doesn't matter. And it's like, I think it displays a lack of confidence. Now that's not to say, oh, Nelson doesn't have confidence in his kick, because clearly he does. He was able to make that monster kick 48 meters out, so that's clearly like one of his strengths. The issue is that the team as a whole doesn't have confidence in their attack, and
or the line out,
in the line out, in mauls, in
even the 2 tries that they did score were quick taps off penalties. Right, and one of them wasn't even quick. One of them was just like that Spain got a chance to actually reset completely. Right. So
but I mean, like, also looking at the game, like Andrew Cotrin was within a couple of meters of scoring a try and he knocks it on. And then it's like, okay, now we have to go back and do the scrum, and we have to and it's one of these things, it's something for like sports psychologists to look at, because what I want this team to be able to do, and especially in this game coming up against Brazil, spoiler alert, USA beat Brazil, is that I want them to just take the chance and go for it. And when it gets to things like, okay, we're in like the final minutes of the game, and players are tired, and they just need like 60 seconds or 90 seconds just to regather themselves, that's when you get your kicker and be like, okay, wind down the clock, take the kick at posts, stuff like that. Not in the first 5 minutes.
Not like right off the bat. Like, you're not South Africa. Like,
no,
you can't play like South, because that's the one thing. It's like, I think a lot of sports too, and it's like they try to like do copycat stuff, right?
Yeah,
like, one team's really successful, so we're going to try that. This happens in a lot of sports, right? And it's like Canada clearly like wants to kick for points and box kick, and it's like they don't have the personnel to do this, and Kingsley Jones needs to realize that.
Now this is the thing, kicking does play an important part in like the flow of games. Like, I know
for sure, but you have to be good at it.
Well, it's not even good at it. It's that you have to recognize where you're kicking. You have to.
Oh, that's another thing. We can talk about the try Spain scored too.
Yeah, it's like you have to find, like, know where your players are, know where it's empty space. Like, I'm being Welsh, obviously. I'm going to talk about Wales because everyone and their mother loathed Warren Ball between 2008 and 2019 because it looked like, oh, they're just kicking it down the field. Oh no, they've kicked it into touch, and they're just moving along with the lineup. But and guys like Squid Rugby on Scrum 5 as well, they've mentioned how that kicking structure and how they chase down players when you kick the ball and stuff to like put them under pressure, and is ultimately the team would get like the net advantage at the line out because they've pushed the team further back. And then obviously they throw to the line out gets them all, or it opens up space to allow their runners to come in. And as easy as it would be to just go to the Canadian team and show them a video of Warren Ball and be like, cool, see that? Do that. Do that.
Well, I mean,
that's obviously not how it works.
There's a lot of Welsh coaches, right? So, I mean, I don't think that that's necessarily too far because, I mean, especially who was like Rob Howley was the attack coach during the Warren Ball era, too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I think you might be on to something with what they're going for, but it's like, I think you said two key things there, too. One, it's like if you're going to box kick a lot, that chase has to be money.
Yeah.
And like there was too many, like Josiah Mora was able to get there on a couple kicks and make a nice contest out of it. But the vast majority of Jason Higgins' box kicks were way too far for anybody to get under it. And if you can't get the wingers or your centers or whoever really whoever, but it's mostly probably going to be your wingers, right? But like if you can't kick how far they can run in that time, right? It's like you see that it's just like simple. You see that it's like it's an easy take for the fullback, right? And then if you give them too much time, they might be able to make one or two steps and they're gone, right? If you give them too much time, which happened a couple times in this game, right? And two, like your other thing is you were talking about gaining like the net advantage through territory and at a line out, right? That's great, but you can't lose the line out. Like you can't have the ball be stolen at the line out. You can't overthrow the line out. You can't get a throw not straight penalty at the line out. You can't in any way like botch the line out or else that advantage is gone, right? And even at that, like there was a couple times in this game where Canada did make some ground and then the lineout was stolen, lineout was overthrown, lineout was just in general untidy, not clean from the jumper to Higgins, or just something went wrong, right?
Yeah,
that happened far too much, right? So if that's going to be your strategy, you got to clean up that lineout, right? Because you're not going to be able to get, it's like you just named the two things that strategy is, the success of that strategy depends on the line out and a good kick chase, and Canada did none of those things, right?
Yeah.
So if you can't do it, you kind of need to come up with something else. If you can't do it, right? Like if you don't have like the personality, like we said, it's like Wales was kind of built to do that. South Africa is built for a lot of kicking and a lot of heavy forward work, right? Is Rugby Canada built the same way, right? Or are they built a different way? Like, because that's something, like, if you don't have the players that can do it, right, then that becomes up to the coaching staff to be like, okay, we got to figure out like an attack strategy, an attack plan, a defensive tactics that work with the personnel and the players that we have, that work within the way they all play, right? That complements them instead of not complimenting them. And my God, give the back something to do. Like, because that's go on.
I think as well. So I saw on like Twitter and stuff like that, people mentioning that some of the big statements from Canada came at the hands of their sevens players coming over and playing with the 15s, like as you mentioned, Josiah Mora. And we know that like Andrew Coe has been with the sevens previously as well.
Owaru's
been with the sevens as well.
He was the best player too.
Yeah, and to go back to Wales for a second,
but also sevens and new players to the 15s, not the vets. It wasn't the vets that made the big impact. It's the new guys.
Yeah.
culture shift needed.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. But something else that Warren Gatland said is that talent is like rare. So you can think of like the most talented rugby players you know, and you look at your own players that you're available and be like, they may not be as talented. So what do I have that I can help them with? And his thing was his players, the Welsh squad, would be the fittest players on the pitch. Now you can look at Wales at the 2015 World Cup when they were back practically held together with gaffer tape and cotton wool.
Yeah.
But is the players that did somehow manage to make it to the end of the games, they weren't like huffing and puffing and stuff. They were still keeping their heads in because in the training they had been, pushing themselves to the absolute limit. Now, I do admit that when it comes to like World Cup warm-up camps, Wales are known to, go to Portugal to tackle the heat, do training up mountains to improve lung capacity, go to Poland to do like cold temperature train so that they can recover enough to do a second session in the afternoon. Now, I'm not saying Rugby Canada is going to be able to do that. They clearly do not have the resources. We all know that the money's not there in Rugby Canada, but it has to be these things that get put into, especially like the younger players as well. And I think this is what's coming through because obviously, if you want to be good at sevens, you have to be quick, you have to be sharp, you have to be fast, you have to be able to focus on offloading because you have to keep the ball in hand, you have to keep ball retention high, and we saw it in this game. Like the best players were the ones who were able to keep their fitness to a high enough level, and the question has to be for Rugby Canada and the environment as a whole is how can you ensure that these guys stay in a high training environment so that when it, because we've talked about like the MLR in 2024 is starting in March and there's going to be a 2-week break for the internationals. Like, is that environment going to help the men's national team? And if it's not enough, then what needs to be done? Because hopefully we'll be at this stage next year saying that, Canada have these 2 games coming up or these 3 games coming up in Europe. Are they going to have the fitness to be able to do that? Are they going to, and, we're seeing it with all, like every professional team now from, like the Springboks through to Chile, Portugal, all these teams that, their resources aren't infinite. They don't have, big bankers backing them at every opportune moment, but they have high performance facilities. And, even Paraguay is looking into building a high performance facility so that they can compete against their South American compatriots for that World Cup spot, maybe in 2031 or 2035. And this is something that Canada needs to be focusing on as well. As like, yes, you're not rolling in the dough. You don't have, unlimited resources to be able to get, but with what you've got, what can you do to get these players to that next level to ensure that the next generation of Canadian rugby players, the young guys coming through, are going to be in a position where they're able to say, you know what? I'll say this guy, that guy, this other person, far more talented, but no one's going to outwork me. No one's going to outwork this team. That's what we need to do.
I mean, a couple, like, I feel like every team says that. Like every team at some point will have the, like, we're going to be the fittest team speech, or like, no one's going to outwork us. And when you have, like, when you're at international sport, like, like the top 30 teams are all going to say like, hey, nobody's going to outwork us. I I do remember, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember like at some point a couple years ago, Kingsley Jones was talking about like how great the Rugby Canada Broncos scores were. Um, at some point, I feel like I remember that. Do you remember that at all? I feel like we talked about that at some point, but I don't. I tried to like Google it real quick, but
I don't. I know. Well, this is the thing is that so many
yeah,
rugby teams do use Bronco. And
Broncos. Everybody uses a Bronco.
I'm pretty sure the Arrows use it as well. And I think like the
Everyone
Arrows were
uses
saying their
Bronco.
scores were really good. So,
So here's the thing, though. At the end of the day, like fitness is important, but you're not competing in fitness testing. Like you're competing in rugby. It doesn't matter who, like it matters in the sense that yes, I agree. You want your players being fit. Conditioning is important, but you like look at this game though. This game, right? Because you're talking about being like Wales, Warren Gatlin's big thing, right? Was like no one's going to outwork Wales. And you mentioned that, correct me if I'm wrong, Stu, but you mentioned at the like Wales was like at the end of the game, like they're not going to be the team that's like gassed at the end of a game, right?
yeah.
Like out of breath, right? This game was lost in the first half, right? Like that's not fitness. That's you stink at rugby, right? Like that's not fitness. That was the downfall in this game. Like Spain, like you know what I mean? Like you look at some of the tries that were scored. It's like these aren't fitness plays or whatever, especially since it's like they're so early in the game, right? Like some of the tries and stuff that were allowed, that Canada was like allowed in this game. Like you got the first try, just let the wingers run wild down the wing, right? Like all of Spain's tries, it's not like Spain was scoring by like doing pick and goes off the goal line and stuff. Like they were like, we're gonna do some Harlem Globetrotter shit and make your outside backs look like goofballs today, and that's how it tries, right? So it's like you got like the first try, some nice passing. Every back on the pitch, I think, touches the ball, and Bay scores, right?
Yeah.
The next try, I think the next try, I kind of double check the order here.
It's Bay again.
It's Bay again. So that the next try, it's Bay again. And it's just Keith is like too far away from the ruck. Bay steps inside of Keith. Nelson's the only guy back. He steps around him. Easy try. You cannot let a scrum half slip by the ruck 22 plus meters out from your own try line and run in for a try at test level. You can't do that. That's 13 minutes into the game. That's not like, to me, I'm like, that's not fitness, right? That's not a fitness thing. Even though fitness is important, I'm not trying to say like fitness is important, but it's like, that's not the, whatever, 15 plus minutes later, right? Imaz's try, right? It's again, a clearance kick too far for a good chase. Spain actually, I think, was it the fullback or one of the wingers? I think it was the fullback, right? That like kind of misplays the kick, is able to like kind of stop the ball without knocking it on, and Imaz just picks up the loose ball and is like, no one's gonna touch me. Okay, that's fine. I'll just run through this giant hole that you left, right? So he runs through that, and then there's a couple more missed tackles, right? And it's like you just let an 8-man run 40 meters on you without being touched, right? Like that's brutal too. Lopez's try. Like I don't know what level of rugby it's acceptable to let a guy run parallel to your defensive line across 4, 5, 6 dudes and then be like, oh, there's my opening, thank you, and like go in. Like I don't know what level of rugby that's acceptable at, but I'm pretty confident it's not the test level, right? To literally allow one guy to just run like across 5 players until he sees a hole and then just go through it, right? Like it's that, like you can't allow that to happen. And then like again, Kane's try, which is 2 minutes after Lopez's, because they scored off the restart. Bay made one step, 3 Canadian defenders blew by him, and then it's a 2-on-1. Right. And it was like Kane made no mistake. It took what? Did that play even take 15? Did that play even take 20 seconds? or whatever. Like, you can't, like, there's CF Grey Cup weekends coming up. There's CFL teams that don't have a kick return that good. Like, right. And it's like, for a rugby team to do that is like, you should be embarrassed by that.
Yeah.
That's not, and again, though, that's not a fitness thing. That's just like, the defensive coverage is bad. You're missing tackling. There's obvious, like, and the crazy thing is it's like, you look at these guys and we watch them play all year in like MLR, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, none of these guys are bad defensive players, but for some reason you get them in this situation and it's like there's I don't know what happens. And it's like, there's got to be, like, to me, I'm like, there's got to be like a coaching thing. Like, you shouldn't be able to, like, your kickoff coverage, your restart coverage, right, shouldn't allow for one guy to step a player and then that just creates an opening for them to run 80 meters down the field. Right.
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't happen. Like, Lopez's try shouldn't happen at this level. Right.
No.
Missed tackles, poor tackles. Imaz's try shouldn't have happened at this level. And even if you want to argue that obstruction, that non-call on the obstruction that the TMO did look at, there's 3 or 4 other guys that had a shot at tackling him.
Yeah.
Right. Especially like a Nelson at the back again. Right. You have that. And then also, like, speaking of Nelson too, that yellow card was just like, why? Dude?
Yeah, well,
like,
that's the thing. I actually want to talk about, like, both the yellow cards. I think
both of them were why. Both of them were like, why?
Yeah, both of them were.
Higgins too, because it's like, dude, you're a scrum half. No,
yeah, no. I think with Nelson, I can see where he's coming from, and it's just you didn't get the second arm up.
Put your other hand out.
Yeah,
your other hand out.
Yeah, like, bring up the other hand. Bring up the other hand. Like, that's an interception try.
I am not a professional rugby player, and I understand that we are on a podcast critiquing professional rugby players who are all significantly better at rugby than we are.
Yes,
right. So it's like, you know what? I don't know how to pass better. I'm gonna say you missed a tackle. I don't know how to tackle better. Is it that hard to stick your other arm out? Like, well, if he puts his other hand out, he probably catches that.
Yeah,
because it hits him in the forearm. Like, he probably catches that if he puts 2 hands on, or at the very least, if you put 2 hands on it, it's a knock on.
Yeah, it's just a knock on. It's a deliberate attempt to grab the ball. It's a scrum.
Nelson,
you stay on the pitch for the next 10 minutes.
Nelson I think actually plays that pretty decently, in the sense that he anticipates the pass. He's in really good position. All you got to do is put the other hand out. That's all he had to do.
But that's the thing. We can see what he was trying to do, and it was just a case of you needed to have that other arm up, and it would have been okay.
Catch the ball one-handed, I don't care.
Yeah,
if you drop it, it's a yellow card every time. So just put the other hand there.
Yeah, like, but but again, we can see where Nelson's coming from. Higgins was just dumb.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what Higgins
is. Now, fortunately, Spain weren't able to capitalize on that yellow card. I mean, at that point, it didn't matter anyway. They were already miles away in the distance. But it's, and I know I'm talking about training, but in the sense of, it's like a little, like, one thing here helps something else there, helps something else there, helps something else there. Yeah, so I'm not saying training is like the be all end all. I get it. In the sense of, if you can, stay on your feet, if you can keep your head calm in situations, if you can be able to focus and see what you need to do, then you don't come offside and go for the ruck when you're a scrum half.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, Higgins is a scrum half, and like, you got to know that rule.
That's what makes it worse.
Yeah. But like, I mean, I get what you're saying with like the training and the fitness and stuff. Like, if you can find something that makes you the whole idea that if you can find something that makes you 1% better, right? Like, you got to try to do it. Right. But like, it's just there's just so much that seemed to go wrong in this game. And then, but again, though, too, it's like, you look at like the 2 yellow cards though, too, and like, we're complaining about them not being the smartest plays. Right. And it's like, man, those are like the vets making those plays again.
Mm.
Right? And it's like, and they're like, there's times too, and it's like, Matt Oworu had an unreal breakdown steal. We've mentioned a couple times that he's the best player in this game, right? For Canada, has an unreal breakdown steal, right? Only for the vets to completely botch the line out and give the ball right back. And it's like what, like, I mean, I don't know, like that's got to be a little discouraging. Like, like you got some guys like a Waru and Kelly that seem like they're busting their ass off trying to get the ball back, and then the line out gets botched again or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Something that like
like,
bothered me as well is that, okay, Higgins gets a yellow card, he's off for
oh my
10
God,
minutes.
it's pissed me off so much if you're gonna say what I think you're gonna say.
It's like once that yellow card's up, put Reed Watkins in.
Thank you. Thank you. That is exactly what I was hoping you could say. Because yes, that
what difference is it gonna make at the end of the day?
It's like at the end of the day, too, it's like you got Nelson, playing like fly half or scrum half, sorry.
Yeah.
During that time. Can't box kick. Right. So your strategies that you've been using all game is shot. Right?
Yeah.
Again, though, it wasn't working, but now that you don't have a guy that can box kick, like your strategy's out the window. So now you just got Povey kicking bombs down the field. Because my goodness, if Robbie Povey can do anything, it's kick a ball like 4 kilometers. But if but yeah, like I'm just like, man, put Watkins on, and then like, I'm trying to look at the time, like put Watkins on, and then you can, because this is honestly what I would want to see. Like, put Reed Watkins on to replace Higgins during that yellow card. Once that yellow card is up, I would maybe I would say you got to put Mitch Richardson on so he can come on like slightly early. Is my timing correct on that?
So
47.
Higgins got
47.
Higgins came off 47, Richardson on 65.
65. Yeah, so that would have worked. So then you could have put Richardson on for like Nelson, maybe move Olsen to fullback. Olsen was a player that I forgot was playing until he kicked caught a ball in like the 74th minute or something. Right, shift Olsen to that, or like shift Olsen to like that, and then put Richardson on the wing or something. But like, I don't know, like just to get everybody in the game.
Yeah.
Like, well, you could have moved more, like just to get everybody in the game. Like, what's like, as we said, it's like a big part of what Rugby Canada needs to do right now is develop younger players. And it's like Reed Watkins is a guy that's uncapped. And like, why not put him on in a game that you're down by I don't know, are they down by 29 at that point? Whatever.
Yeah, I think it's 29.
Whatever, like down by 29 at that point. Like, why not put Reed Watkins in the game? It's not going to get worse. Like, it won't get worse. And let's just give them some like, right, and then like, like move some guys around. You can move you could, what you could have done? You could have actually, if I'm kind of looking at it, you could have brought Richardson on, have Richardson, Lesage in the centers, take Nelson off, put Povey at fullback and Casey at fly half. Try something else.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just because, like you could do so many things.
Yeah, and I think this is like the growing frustration of these are games that ultimately at the end of the day,
also all the vets started, which was something I also said I didn't want to see.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, this competition doesn't affect World Cup qualification. It doesn't. It's not in North America, so it's at a difficult time for North Americans to engage in the game, because I think this kicked off at like 2 p.m. East. Yeah, and so, and I mean, we had this. What was it like last year when we had the like America's rugby challenge or whatever, and it was like like Chile, Canada, and Brazil, but it was 15, so it was uncapped. And you're like, okay, who are you going to take down? And they took senior players.
I think that's the thing. It's like there's a lot of guys that I'm just like kind of looking at, and it's even like, I mean, I put out a tweet at halftime being like, empty the bench right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Go nuts.
especially like after that first half, which was like dreadful, like empty the bench. Like you kind of like even look at this, like what, like Connor Keys came off in the 78th minute for Vicolani. Like,
Yeah.
if you're like, what's Vicolani gonna do in 2 minutes? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's 2 minutes. Like, what's he gonna do? Like, what's he gonna do? What's he gonna learn out of 2 minutes of game time? Right? Like, and it's just like, I feel like yeah, like the first half was so bad that I was just like, in that moment, I was just like, empty the entire bench. Like, just put all the younger guys that Kingsley Jones put on the bench, just unload them. Because again, like after that first half, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Exactly.
Like,
well, I'm hoping at least
you lost
that
the game already.
Like, yeah. Over. And as a result, Canada will be facing Brazil this coming Saturday. I believe that game kicks off at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And then following that, it will be the USA versus Spain for the La Villa International Rugby Cup. But yeah, I'm hoping for like that game. Brazil, the only team in this competition that's ranked below Canada. This is the time to get, the uncapped guys, give them a cap, get them the opportunity to play, and see if you can produce something. But I'm not holding my breath at the moment. But
or tune into next week's episode of Rouge Rugby podcast for a lot of yelling.
Yes.
One of two things.
Make sure to subscribe for that episode. But that game will be at 2 p.m. Eastern time this Saturday on November 18th. And again, nothing we haven't confirmed. Obviously, the game was on TSM Plus, so we believe that I assume it'll be the same as well. All right, let's take it from Spain back to Toronto because we have some Arrows news coming in. We have 2 re-signings. First up is Nick Ben. And then yesterday it was announced Lani Faleva has re-signed. Now, Ben, unfortunately, he played in that first game of last season against ATL. Sadly, injured his shoulder and was required an operation, and so was out for the season. But he did remain with the squad. He was there at training environments and getting involved with the game as, obviously not playing, but doing well. Lani Faleva Flav. Wonderful to see he's re-signed. Always look forward to Lani's line breaks and just making it up the pitch. Like, always good to get see that, and the crowd really loves it. But we have a bit of bad news, I'm afraid. We've had 2 re-signings, but we've got 2 departures as well. The first is scrum half Ross Brody. After 3 years with the Arrows, has now moved to the MRU Airlink Pumas in South Africa. And Isaac Salmon has joined NOLA Gold for the 2024 season. Brody with the Pumas, I believe they also play in the Curry Cup that runs at the same time as MLR, or it did last year at least.
At the same time.
Yeah, which means that he's not available. Yeah. And Salmon, has given
the NOLA Gold season definitely runs at the same time as the Arrow season.
I know, how rude is that? They can't just play at a different time. But Brody has been one of the star players, one of the fan favorites. And I was wondering when is the announcement of Brody re-signing coming through, and then noticing that on his Instagram he was in the Pumas lineup, and I was like, oh, maybe he's just doing this during the off season, getting some rugby in. Did a little bit of research about the Pumas, and I was like, oh no. But as we know, Brody is from South Africa, and I'm hoping this keeps him in good stead. The season, as we said, runs the same time as MLR, which hopefully means he's still available for Canada duty if he's available. Isaac, unfortunately, not Canadian, but he's put in a great stint with the Arrows, and we definitely appreciate everything he's done with the team. Wishing him all the best at NOLA. except when they play Toronto. Then he can have an off day. He can, take it easy, miss a few tackles and, take it nice and slow and relaxed. And it's all good, man. But yeah, thanks to both Brody and Salmon for your time with the Arrows. And remember, once you're an Arrow, you're always an Arrow. So let's look at the Arrows team to date. In the forwards, we have McRogers, Rowland, Larson, Grindle, Flesh, O'Neill, Wong, Rumble, and Faleva. In the backs, we have Brown, Malcolm, Richardson, Breen, Bowman, Bowen, Grant, Reed, Nelson, Povey, and Ben. We also have Biddle, Jay Brown, and Waitakia as part of the trades from Rugby ATL, Rugby LA. Still waiting on that name, guys. Hurry up. And yeah, still have those 9 foreign player slots. I mean, yeah, it was. Anything you want to say, Derek, about the players returning, players departing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'll go departing first. Brody's obviously been a solid scrum half for the for the squad for the past few years. And it will definitely be sad to see him go. I guess that means Will Grant right now, just based on who has been re-signed, is looking like is currently sitting in the scrum in the number 9 jersey, I suppose, based on who has been re-signed at the moment. Or I guess Cole Brown could be there too. I guess now that I'm actually looking at it quickly, Brown and Grant, I guess, are the 2 guys competing for the scrum half jersey right now. But and then obviously Salmon was a solid player, and he'll probably go on to do some pretty great things in NOLA. With the guys that are sticking around, Faleva obviously was the Arrows forward of the year last year and completely deserved. Not only maybe the best forward they had, but also definitely the most entertaining. Everybody loves a good prop run, and he's one of the best in the league at that. Nick Ben, obviously, as you touched on, only played 1 game because he got hurt in that game against Rugby ATL. But I feel like everyone kind of forgets that he was really, really good in that game. Right. And it, like, unfortunately, had the shoulder injury on a tackle. But like, he was really good in that game. And I was like, it is it's an unfortunate injury, and it may be a little disappointing that it wiped out a season. Because I really liked what I saw from Ben in that 1 game, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him this year. Great. Hopefully that shoulder has recovered fully, and he can hit the ground running in 2024. So, still two solid signings this week. Unfortunately, some sad departures. I hope Ross Brody still plays for Canada. That's obviously been in, as we have discussed, a bit of an issue getting overseas players to actually play for Canada recently. So, I'm hoping that that's not a dual loss there, because Ross is really good at rugby.
Yeah.
So we kind of need that.
Man. And in MLR news as a whole, a press release was released this week about MLR's new partnership with Globant. And for those of you that don't know, Globant has now taken over duties of the Rugby Network. So if you have any continuing issues, they're the people to blame. So, but they did.
Hey, man, we live in Canada. We have no issues watching the Premiership on a service not available to us.
Exactly. I mean, it's been working fine for us.
I was going to say, Sportsnet's working great to watch the Premiership.
Yeah. But something that the Rugby Network will be showing is the Canadian University Men's Rugby Championship, which takes place this week. Now, we are recording on November 14th, and the opener is November 15th, and this will probably get out just in time for the second round, which are the semifinals. But I can give you a detailed list of who is said to be playing and in what order, because it's going to be hosted by Trinity Western University, the Spartans hosting, and it's being held at the Willoughby Community Park Stadium, which is also the location of Vancouver FC, if you're a Canadian Premier League fan. And the lineup we have to begin with the Ottawa GGs versus the Memorial Seahawks in the first round. And then we have the UVic Vikes versus the Queen's Gales. After that, we have the Guelph Griffins playing the hosts, Trinity Western Spartans. And finally, we end the first round with the UBC Thunderbirds against the University of Calgary Dinos or Dinos. I don't know how they
It's
pronounce it.
Dino.
Dinos? Okay.
Dinos. Do you say dinosaurs or dinosaurs?
Well, that's the thing. I know someone whose name sounds like looks like Dino, but it's pronounced Dino. So
because Dino's a name. Dino is a prehistoric creature.
Yeah. Either way,
resides in Calgary.
So for those of you that don't know, the CUMRC is a single tier list of competition. So it goes from the opening round into the semifinals and then on to finals, including like ranking positions before third place and then the winners final. Derek, who do you think is the team to beat? Who do you think is going to be a lock for the final? And who do you think is most likely to pull off an upset?
Oh, that's interesting. Most likely, I think looking at the quarterfinals, like UVic versus Queens as a matchup in the quarterfinal is obviously fascinating because that's two of the best schools in the country and wouldn't really be an upset either way. But you're gonna have a big school getting knocked out in the quarterfinal because of that. I think if I were kind of looking at this, I feel like UBC is just kind of like the perennial favorite every year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if I had got a pick, I would probably go UBC. But I could see Queens, I could see Guelph giving them a run too. So I guess maybe that means I'm taking Queens over UVic, but like I could see some teams giving them a run. I'm kind of cheering for a like Queens or Guelph just to get like an Ontario champ again. It's been I feel like it's been a bit of a while since that's happened, but I mean it's one of those things. I feel like all these university rugby championships, I feel like UBC is the favorite until they lose. So
yeah. I don't know. I think I agree with you in the whole that the Thunderbirds are like the team to beat, and it'll be obviously they are their number 1 seed. The Dinos are number 8, and they'll be up against either Guelph or the Spartans. Spartans obviously play them frequently, so they'll know them. If Guelph are currently in the draw ranked 4th to the Spartans 5th. So I don't know. I think UBC would have the edge over either of those teams. But yeah, I think well, that's the annoying thing of having yeah, it's I don't know. I think Queens Queens are ranked 7th in this for reasons. So if Queens were to win, it would like technically be an upset, but I'm not sure how big of an upset that would be.
I feel like when it's one of those things when it's like when you're at this point, it's like upsets are on like a gradual scale. Whatever, right? It's like you get to like it's the top 8 teams in the country. Like there's not
were Memorial in the competition last year?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think they were. I'd have to look it up.
It was so long ago, it was a year ago. But yeah, so unfortunately by the time this comes out, the opening round will have concluded, but by the time you're watching this or listening to this, it'll be enough time for the semi-finals. So make sure to keep an eye out on the Rugby Network to see if you can catch up with those games. Because of the short turnaround of each games, I believe the matches are only 60 minutes long, so 2 halves of 30 minutes.
I mean, either way, 3 rugby games in 5 days is a big ass. Like that's still 180 minutes of rugby in 3 days. Like, it's a big ask.
Yeah. So, but just keeping it, if you're like watching the clock and it gets to 60 minutes and the ref blows his whistle, and you're like, wait a minute, that can't be right. That's why. So, but yeah, the semifinals are on November 17th and the finals are on Sunday, November 19th. And again, those games are available on the Rugby Network. As we said, the Canada game against Brazil should be on TSN Plus. And if you're looking to follow your team in either the Premiership or the URC, you can do so on Sportsnet. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out more as well as written pieces on our website, therougerugby.ca. We're also available on Spotify, S4P, and Apple Podcasts. We also have a YouTube channel at the Rouge Rugby with episodes of podcasts as well as extras. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification to stay up to date with all our videos. We are also available across social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, all at the Rouge Rugby. Derek, where can the people find you on social media?
At Brissette the Jet across all social media platforms.
And you can find me across social media at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. Well, that's where we're going to end this episode. Derek, once again, thank you for joining me, and thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Rouge Rugby Podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. We hope you can join us again next time.